Hi friends, welcome to or welcome back to the channel Jane Reads. My name is Jeanette, and today I am going to tell you the 16 books that I plan to reread in 2026. So I have created a priority rereads bingo board with 16 books. Why did I choose to do a bingo board with 16 books, so a 4x4? Basically, I love doing bingo boards for one thing. I have a spreadsheet where I keep track of all my books that I want to read. So I have them marked if I own them and want to read them, or if I'm interested in reading them, or if they're books I want to reread. And on that list for the reread, there were 16 authors when I sorted the list. So I'm like, well, that works perfectly to do a 4x4 and have 16, one book per author. So I took that list, made one little adjustment because there was a certain author on that list. I was like, I don't want to put their books on my bingo board. And that author is John Grisham. And that's kind of my punishment author books for my TBR game. And basically, John Grisham was an author that I read a ton of in high school and college, and I had a ton of his books when I first worked on creating this list. But I've had them on my shelf and I have no notes about them, what I thought about them. I have curated my collection down to certain books that I am interested in reading at some point, but I'm not forcing myself to do that right now. I will pick that up when I want to pick it up. So I replaced him with a different author who I have books on my Kindle. So when I create my rereads list, anytime I buy a book that I have already read before and I buy a physical copy of the book, I add it to my rereads list, because if I'm bringing in a physical copy of the book, I want to reread it again. I know, I'm just weird that way. And basically I don't normally do that if I read a book in 2025, for example, and I've bought it after I read it. I don't do it then. It's more a book that I read a few years prior, but I've bought the physical copy because I remember really enjoying it. So then I add it to my rereads list. Okay, so I'm going to go through this list. Oh, the other thing I said, to create this bingo board, I took the 16 authors, and then if I had multiple books by an author, I put all their books into a spinner wheel and let the spinner wheel choose which book would end up on the bingo board. So I only have a book one in one series on this bingo board. Other ones, they are further into the series. And this is alphabetical by author's last name is the way this board was created. So the first book is Ulterior Motives by Terry Blackstock. This is book 3 of the Sun Coast Chronicles series. And I read this prior to 2015. And I gave it 3 stars at that time. But this book came out in 1996. Wow, it's 30 years old. Or sometime in 2026, it will be 30 years old. I don't know what month it actually came out. But it is a suspense, and Terry Blackstock is an author I have loved for years and own majority of her books, but it is one that I do not have written thoughts of on Goodreads, so that is why the series is on my rereads board or rereads list. So the wheel chose book number 3. So I need to reread book 1 and 2 in order to get to this one. It is only a 4-book series, thankfully. And so it says, the police think he killed someone. He swears he's innocent. All she knows for certain is his crime against her. And then book 2 is a book 2 of a series, and that is When a Heart Stops by Lynette Eason. This is book 2 of the Deadly Reunions series. It is a romantic suspense. And I initially read it in November of 2014, but I purchased a physical copy in February of 2025, and my notes say I gave it 4 stars. And it says, a killer's deadly game needs new players, but someone's about to change the rules. Okay, the third book is The Joy of Falling by Lindsay Harrell. This would be considered a women's fiction. We are following two women who lose their husbands on a thrill-seeking adventure. And they are American. They find out that their husbands had signed up for an ultra marathon in New Zealand. And the women are struggling with losing their husbands. One has 3 children. The other one, I'm pretty sure, is single. And so they go over to New Zealand to try to take part and kind of represent their husbands. And we're following to see how that goes. I initially read this, where's my note, in September of 2021. I gave it 4 stars. Then in May of 2024, I purchased myself a physical copy of it. And then in December of 2024, my best friend gifted me a physical copy of it. So I have 2 copies. I am thinking about giving this one to my mom, but I'm not 100% sure. So that's part of the reason I want to reread before I pass it on, kind of refresh myself, because my mom has lost her husband. Number of years ago, my father passed away. So I'm kind of like, I don't know if she will enjoy this or not. And secondly, I was thinking about it because I have an uncle, one of my dad's brothers, so my mom's brother-in-law, lives in New Zealand. And my mom has been to New Zealand a couple times to visit him. And so I was like, that might be fun to read and set in a different country. So yeah, so this is book number 3. Book number 4 is a bit of a cheat, maybe, because this book is also on my self-destruct list of the 10 books I need to read before the end of the year, but it is a reread, so I'm not 100% sure. So if I should allow it on this list, but it's on this list, and that is Kidnapped by D. Henderson. This was on my rereads bingo board in 2024, and I did not read it. And I'm kind of like, okay, if I do not read it this time, I definitely need to unhaul it, which is why it is on my self-destruct list. And so I initially read this when this book was called True Courage, and it was then republished. So it was called True Courage. It was part of the Uncommon Heroes series. It was a 4-book series. This series is now a 3-book series, with book 4 being re-released in 2008 as Kidnapped. And basically, it did not connect with the other 3 books in the Uncommon Heroes series, which is why it was re-released and renamed. The other one followed like same characters, same type of job, or characters within the same type of job that interacted, whereas this book is completely separate. They're following an FBI agent. So that is why. And then I picked this one up. So I did have a physical copy of it when it was called True Courage, but I loaned it to a friend, and then they moved and I never got the copy back, which, I mean, fine, whatever. As I said, it didn't really fully connect with that other series, so my series doesn't feel incomplete. But I found this copy at a library sale in October of 2023, hence why it was on my 2024 bingo board, and I didn't read it. So it is going back on the bingo board to be read this year. It is a suspense with a bit of romance. A killer returns. A fragile love falters. A kidnapping goes awry. Okay, the next book is A Dazzle of Diamonds by Liz Johnson. This is book 3 in the Georgia Coast romance. I have recently reread book 1, so I only have book 2 and then 3 to read to complete that series. It is a contemporary romance series, and Penelope loves her job as an event manager until her ex-fiance walks into her office and his new bride-to-be. With his new bride-to-be. Surely she cannot be expected to plan their wedding. Then we have Tucker, who has served 2 tours in the Middle East. He's built a thriving security company. His work is nearly as stabilizing as his lifelong friendship with Penelope. But when the lone candidate for the county sheriff goads him, Tucker loses his cool and ends up on the ballot. So what happens with these two? We'll find out. Okay, then we have A Most Noble Heir by Susan Ann Mason. This is a standalone, and I read this as an advanced reader copy in 2018, May 2018. It is historical fiction set in England, I'm pretty sure. Yes, I'm pretty sure. And it says, will gaining the world cost him everything he holds dear? When stablehand Nolan learns from his dying mother that he is actually the son of the Earl of Sainsbury, his plans for a future with kitchen maid Hannah are shattered. Once he is officially acknowledged as the Earl's heir, Nolan will be forbidden to marry beneath his station. So I read this, as I said, as an advanced reader copy, but then I found a physical copy of it at a library sale in May of 2025, so hence it got added to my rereads list. Okay, then we have Flashover by Dana Mentick. This was released in January of 2009. It is a love-inspired suspense book. At this time, I was reading a ton of these books. I had just discovered them, and I was reading so many of them. But I have no notes about what I thought about this. It's another pre-2015 book. And it says, don't play with fire. Like, where do I put them? I don't have them in the same stack because they're a different size. Then another love-inspired suspense book is Witness to Murder by Jill Elizabeth Nelson. This was released July of 2009. So again, same thing. I read it before 2015. I have no notes on it. And Moments Too Late. Okay, then we have The Judge Who Stole Christmas by Randy Singer. This is my last Randy Singer book that has been on my shelf pre-2015 that I have no notes on. So it is the only one I could read. And it says, it starts innocently enough in the sleepy town square of Possum, Virginia, but it ends up a national scandal. Can a federal judge outlaw Christmas? So this one might be on the bingo board for a while because Christmas. Okay, then I'm really excited about this one. This is book 2 of a series, but I don't care because I cannot wait to revisit this series. And that is A Memory Between Us by Sarah Sundin. This is book 2 of the Wings of Glory series. This is a series that introduced me to Sarah Sundin's writing. I started with book 1, A Distant Melody. I loved it. I immediately purchased the Kindle copies of book 2 and book 3 and binged this series because I could not wait. I already owned the first book on my Kindle. Then this past September, when I met up with book lover Amanda, she gifted me this series. And I was like, yay, this completes my Sarah Sundin collection in physical form, and I have now read Sarah Sundin 2.0 until her new release comes out in 2026. And so I'm really excited about revisiting her books. So yeah, book 2, it is a historical fiction, World War II. Then we have another book 2, and that is I Shall Not Want by Debbie Vigay. This is book 2 of the Psalm 23 Mysteries series. I have been reading this series forever. I first read this book in November 2011 on my Kindle. I have every book on my Kindle. It is a 23 book series with book 23 just being released in December. And yeah, I cannot wait to kind of revisit from the beginning again. I have not read books 20 to 23 or 21 to 23, somewhere. I'm near the end. But it's been such a gap between the books releasing that I want to go back to the very beginning and refresh myself with the characters. And because there is a storyline that carries over all the way from the beginning, with each book ending on a cliffhanger. Each book does have like its own mystery happening, but there is a lot carried over between characters, with one mystery in particular kind of going throughout multiple books. And so this one says charity work can be murder. This is the only one I have physically. I have never seen these books in physical form, and I happened to find this at a thrift store in September of 2022. Okay, then the next one I have on my Kindle. I do own book 1 physically, which is Undeniably Yours by Becky Wade. So this is book 1 of the Porter family series. And so book 2, Meant to Be Mine, is the book that is on the list. I read this in... Oh, I've already read this twice. That's okay. Because I love this book. I gave this book 5 stars. So I read it in 2014 and 2016. And it was 5 stars both times. And so we are following Ty, who has always been irresistible to Celia. All through high school, irresistible. When their paths cross again after college, he's still irresistible. This time, though, Ty seems to feel exactly the same way about Cecilia. Their whirlwind romance deposits them at a street corner Las Vegas wedding chapel. The next morning, they wake up to a marriage certificate and a dose of cold reality. Cecilia is ready to be Ty's wife, but Ty is not ready to be her husband. What's going to happen? So this is a contemporary romance series, and I cannot wait to revisit these characters. So this series follows siblings. Each book follows a different sibling in the Porter family. Okay, then another book that is on my Kindle. So basically, this is the book that I put in to replace the John Grisham on my author list, and that is Paper Hearts by Courtney Walsh. It says I only gave this book 4 stars when I read it in 2016 or 2015. I can't read apparently. But I remember so much about this book and remember really enjoying it. So I want to reread it. I'm like, why did I only give it 4 stars? Like, why was that not a 5-star if it stuck with me so much? And I initially read it with this cover, but Courtney has since updated the cover and released it with this cover. So this is the one it looks like on Amazon and Goodreads now. And it says, Abigail would have never have guessed that love notes penned on paper hearts by an anonymous couple could restore her belief in love. As a business owner in a quaint town at the base of the Rockies, she's poured everything into dreams of expansion and resisting the matchmaking efforts of the Valentine volunteers who gather in her store to continue Love Park's tradition of stamping mail with the city's romantic postmark. However, stuff happens when a business owner, Will, decides to try to take over Abigail's lease, and sparks kind of fly. We'll see what happens. Then we have Mission Out of Control by Susan May Warren. This is another love-inspired suspense book. This is from March 2011, and it says Special Assignment, Bodyguard. Saving the world is all in a day's work. So, again, I have no notes, no thoughts about it. Okay, and the last 2 books. The Trial by Robert Whitlow. This is a legal fiction, and Robert Whitlow has a lot of times been compared to John Grisham, which is why I got into Robert Whitlow's books to begin with. And I have 2 books left on my shelf that I have not read in the last 5 years, I would say, by him. So this is another pre-2015 book. And it says, Attorney Kent has nothing left to live for. 9 years after the horrific accident that claimed the life of his wife and 2 sons, he's finally given up. His empty house a mirror of his empty soul. It seems suicide is his only escape. Now the question is, by death by pills or by bullet? And then the phone rings. And Mac takes a case. And it comes down to a trial. What happens? So yeah, I remember enjoying this one, but I don't remember a lot about it. So hence a reread. And the very last book is To Win Her Heart by Karen Witemeyer. I love Karen Witemeyer. I have almost read her to zero. I have one novella left by her and then a book that is releasing in February. Otherwise, she would be complete. And I'm like, I cannot have not have any Karen Witemeyer books to read. So hence, I want to start reading through some of the backlist that I read ages ago. And this one, I initially read it in January of 2019, and I gave it 4 stars. And this is one that I actually read physically because I purchased it December of 2018. And so, yeah, I don't know a lot about it. I don't remember. But it says, do they have a fighting chance at love? This is historical fiction set in the late 1800s in Texas. So these are the 16 books that are on my priority rereads board. Can I complete this board this year? Especially, will I read Kidnapped? That has been on a board for 2 years now. We'll see. Have you reread any of these books? And if so, which ones should I prioritize? I'd love to chat in the comments below. And are you a rereader? I would love to know that as well. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video today, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.